Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to round number 5 here at the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series. My name is Stephen Koenig, and joining me in the box, utilizing his umbrella, is Janeman Price. Janeman, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening, Stephen. Unfortunately, they don't pay me enough to have an umbrella. But having a look on the screen, just off to the side here, things do look a little bit wet on track there, so I think that might make for an interesting race tonight.
Head down to the track to get a bit of an idea, and as you pointed out, it is very, very wet out there. Here at Oulton Park for round number 5, very tight circuit. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm actually one of the drivers that do enjoy this circuit, but in something a little bit smaller than a GT3 car, and it's got less fenders sitting on it. But Oulton Park, one of those tricky circuits, especially this chicane over here, where you can lose out up to 3 seconds if you get it wrong. A big shout out to everyone out on the RaceFace grandstands this evening. I see we have got Luke Addison, Bago Krobler, Tiana's Bertha. We've also got the likes of Genesis. We've got quite a few people. Eric Hustain also jumping in. Glad to see you guys are out there on the grandstands, and hopefully a couple of you are actually participating in the racing. This is our Pro class. We do have a Pro-Am and an Am class, along with our Silver and Gold. So multiple classes, fits anyone who is, whether you're the top, the creme de la creme, or whether you're the slower guys, you all have an opportunity to have quite a bit of fun out there. Tricky conditions in terms of it being very, very wet. Janeman, thoughts on this GT3 racing in the wet, something you're very familiar with more often than not, as we see Conrad Volkswagen in the police Porsche making his way around, and Daniel Dematros Petro trying to chase him and nearly outbreaking into it.
Well, you know, Stephen, I think we've seen one of the problems there. The track is wet. It is slippery. You know, you mentioned it, Oulton Park. It's one of those love it or hate it tracks. You know, some of the guys love it. They love throwing the cars around on its tight and twisty track. Other people have said, we've heard comments like, you know, the GT3 cars are a bit too fast. You mentioned open wheelers. You know, the open wheelers, you can really, you know, slung around the corners here. So I think the wet weather brings a very interesting aspect to this race. I mean, you're already sitting on at some parts a very narrow track. You've got a tight and twisty track, and now you've got to dump a whole lot of water on it. So I think things are going to get very interesting tonight, as we see Kube running wide there, and unfortunately not making the turn, and you know, thankfully stopping it before the tire wall. Those tires don't move, by the way, so that would have been an abrupt halt. Got William Wendt. Yeah. As
you say, it would have been a very exciting, as we know, when everything gets a little bit damp here on Assetto Corsa Competizione, the grass becomes super slick. And if you've ever played the old Sonic games, and let's go right back onto the knowledge. Do you remember playing like Mario Kart or Sonic when you hit the speed boost and it used to just like launch you off the circuit? That is pretty much the grass here at Oulton Park at the best of times. Now add a bit of rain to it, well, you've got a whole circuit that is equivalent to Rainbow Road on Mario Kart for anyone that does play Mario Kart.
I mean, absolutely. As we have a look at through the windscreen here of Wentworth, I mean, the car just understeers. Somebody already took the polystyrene bollards out, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But, you know, this long sweeping left-hander, Stephen, this is a very difficult corner, even in the dry and in the wet. Yeah, in the wet, it is even more difficult.
And if you get
little hole in the wall.
When you get it wrong, you can go spearing off into your competitors through the wall. So you've got to be so careful about that. But let's take a look at the point standing at the moment, as you've got it, because there is a little bit of a shake-up towards the back of the points, but not really at the front.
Well, looking at the points out in front, we've got Brian Ottens. He's out there in 182 points. Then behind him is Christian Venter on 120. Now, this is where things get interesting. We've got SES Rays in third on 108. Then we've got Brandon Kruger on 107, Musa on 107, and Gideon Renner on 101, and then Daniel de Matos Petro, he is on 97. And even, if you look at just behind him is Sanjan Pillay on a 94. So even Ryan Ottens is, he's got a comfortable lead at this stage. Christian Venter in second place, but behind them, it's still anybody's game.
Well, as we got Tim the cameraman back behind the cameras, some say he completed a 24-hour in 2 hours. All we know is he's called Tim the cameraman. First place.
I would have loved to have him in the car this weekend.
Oh, that would have been great. Daniel de Matos Petro in first place, Daniel Rowe in second, Grant Sebastian in third, Gideon Reyna in fourth, Ronaldo Boersma in fifth, sixth, Conrad Volsking, along with Daniel de Villiers, Jan van der Merwe, Jason McGregor, and Ryan Ottens, currently your top 10 that are slugging it out on this circuit. And for anyone that doesn't know, we've got a little bit of a recovering drive from the likes of Janneman after teaming up with Christian de Ploy in a 24-hour endurance. So
I'm still recovering.
I just want to give a bit of a shout out to you for that, because that's the way to do it. Tori Adams saying, so Tim crashed and retired. No, Tim did not crash and retire. He was part of Garage 69.
Yeah, he was just that quick. But, before you interrupt me again, can I just point out to everybody that Stephen was with us in the car. He competed as well in the 24-hour. So, Stephen is always good at mentioning other people. He never mentions himself. So, Stephen, just note you were there with us.
Well, we'll keep it being.
I'm still a score loser, though.
Yeah, no. They'll take
Christian,
a look at the yellow flags all over the circuit. Janneman, I think this is something we're going to see more and more often as guys are cutting the corner a little bit too much over the curbs. And I'm noticing a bit of suspension movement on the Ferrari, especially on the rear, that's a little bit unsteady. That's going into the first very, very tight chicane towards the back of the circuit. Do you think the front engines are going to have the advantage here, being naturally understeering cars, can utilize as much of the curb as possible and basically plowing through the water? Or do you think the mid-engines are going to have a little bit of a better time if they can control the amount of oversteer that they can come around? They can keep the cars in reasonable check.
That's the thing about the mid-engine cars tonight. If they can keep that, rotation in check, I think they will do quite well around this tight and twisty track. But you know me, I prefer the engine in the front. I think the front engine cars like the Merc and the BMW, they will be able to cope with the curbs, and you might be able to take a little bit more curb without upsetting the car. But having a look at that, Stephen, out in front, we do have a mid-engine car in the Lamborghini, followed by a front-engine car, and then a mid-engine car, and then a front-engine car. So it's a 50-50 split at this stage.
That's it. And Daniel de Villiers, part of that PWSR team, really going and pulling out all that he's got to put in a 142.977. Andre Serradio is 0.3 up on his current time. Quickest lap time, 142.997. And Ryan Ottens, 143.26. And just a shout out from Hybrid Academy to you, Jan. You missed the last bit of training from them, so you're in trouble. You better hope they're not in the box going and having a chat. Otherwise, we're going to hear
to be very honest, I was asleep. I missed sleep on Saturday evening, so I kind of had to catch it up Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening early.
That's it. And while we've got 5 minutes and 17 seconds remaining of this qualifying race, round number 5 of the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series, it is going to be absolutely amazing as we head towards the closing, where this 8-round championship, we've now gone over the halfway mark. Now it's time to start maximizing those points. And this is where I've got to ask, Janneman, where you start sitting and figuring out your team championships and your driver championship, what's going to be most beneficial for you. for a lot of these guys in the sprint race, they do have teams paired with them, but you also know that you haven't got much time to run away. 55 minutes, one single pit stop in the rain does make things a lot more challenging to try and maintain a good amount of points towards the end.
I mean, absolutely. You mentioned only 55 minutes. There is a certain degree of strategy involved because you need to make one pit stop, other than we had last season where there was no pit stops. But Stephen, it's halfway through the season, 4 races done, 4 to go. So at this stage, I always say who you are racing. You know who the close contenders to you in the championship are, not only in the individual championship, but also in the team championship. And I'm pretty sure all these teams will set themselves goals on who they want to beat in the championship.
It's going to be a super close one, I think. So, as we take a look at Quandupancy, he's been having a huge amount of fun for the Project Vapor team. Good to see him back out there. And, just missing the chicane completely.
There's a corner there somewhere.
The apex is somewhere. Just go put it back. There's Alan Patson in 12th position. He's trying to catch up to his fellow teammates, also opting for a bit of a safer setup this time around. He's not going for something too aggressive and is rather leaving the rest to go and chase up at the front. So very, very interesting in terms of setup scenarios. Some going for more of an aggressive wet setup, others going for more of trying to keep the car alive, try and keep it a little bit more stable. What do you think is going to pay off in the long run? Now with the wet tires, I don't think we're going to be changing tires at all. But I do think fuel is going to come into play. As the lighter you go, you may start having a little bit more of an over-exaggeration of understeer or oversteer quite quickly as the weight transfer, as you're getting less and less weight where it was meant to be balancing you out. Your thoughts onto that in the last 2.5 minutes?
Well, all of these guys, I'm pretty sure, would have done the long run test. They would have figured out what the car does at different fuel loads, at different tire wear rates. But you were talking about the setup. It's still a gamble. We all know, as they say, loose is quick, but it doesn't suit everybody's driving style. Personally, for myself,
De Villiers trying to come back, and he's smack bang on the racing line. As you watched a couple of the guys trying to get themselves all sorted and get around him. Grant Sebastian was also one of the cars that was just trying to get himself all sorted. But the drivers have been told, take it easy. It is wet out there. It's getting a little bit darker. The track is going to be cold. Your tires are going to be cold. Rather go and slack off, hit the brakes a little bit earlier, and ensure that you take it a bit easy, not to run a little bit too close to your fellow competitors. Twofold to this one, and I'm going to bring a little bit of what experience I've had with getting told to calm down. So as we see Ronaldo Boersma up in first place, taking it easy does come into his benefit at the moment. Daniel De Villiers in second place is going to try hunt him down, looking to have that inside line into turn 1. You can straighten up the car, try run your fellow competitor out wide. At risk, you're going to also lose it. But if you're a little bit further down, like Andre Serradio, Grant Sebastian, Ryan Ottens, Daniel Rowe, and Daniel Rowe will also know this little trick of everyone's been told to slack it off. Everyone's a bit too tentative. They're a bit cautious, like a standing start. Guys are waiting for people to move and then they'll go. If you're brave enough and if you have enough trust in your competitors, you can possibly try and gain 1 or 2 positions just by getting slightly aggressive. Not too much, but slightly aggressive by putting your nose forward, just behind the rear wheel of your fellow competitor. That will cause him to straighten up a little bit and be cautious of you. So it's just enough of a waiting game, or if you're going to risk it for the biscuit, not to get too aggressive in your start. But you doesn't say that you have to be the slowest person on the start.
No, it said you must be cautious. It did not specify how cautious you must be.
Don't bin it. Don't bin your fellow competitors. But if you make a position, you make a position. But realize risk versus reward is big time here. Ronaldo Boersma currently on par with his quickest lap time. Last lap time was best lap times 1:42.8. Daniel De Villiers 1:42.9. Andre Serradio has finished up in third place. Fourth is Grant Sebastian. Essie Esterhays in fifth. Ryan Ottens in sixth. Seventh, Daniel Rowe. Daniel Dematros Petro. Nicholas Manuel. Gideon Reyna. Mahath Musa in 11th place. So there is a lot going on, but it's going to be very, very interesting as the race goes on. And while we go to our grid, let's take a look back to our commentary box, where it's a little bit, it's a bit chilly, I won't lie, but at least we're not so wet compared to the pit crews and drivers out there. And I know Cameron De Villiers going and saying, why? And as we heard Jim going and saying, watch out for your braking distance, busy alerting to us. So, Cameron De Bastos going and saying he doesn't like Oulton Park, and now it's in the rain, makes it even worse. I think there's quite a few drivers with the same sentiment at the moment.
I mean, we get comments on the chat that says rain. Why does it have rain? You said it, Stephen. There's mixed comments. Some of the guys love it. Some of the guys don't like the track. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things. I very rarely, or I don't think there's a racetrack out there that everybody will like. What's your opinion on that?
There's a few Mickey Mouse circuits that I'm not a big fan of. I will say that. All right, well, let's go and talk proper here. Let's go through the grid. So, RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series brought to you by RaceFace. Ronaldo Boersma in first place, Daniel De Villiers in second, Andre Serradio going to be taking third place, followed by Grant Sebastian, Essie Esterhays in fifth place. Good run for him. Ryan Ottens, followed by Daniel Rowe, the Hybrid Academy guys, a little bit further back than planned. Daniel Dematros Petro, Nicholas Manuel, Gideon Reyna, Mahath Musa, Jan van der Merwe, Kurt Glaashagen. Do apologize if I got that either wrong or right. I'm still waiting for the voice message. Conrad Forsking, followed by Quan Duplessis, Alan Patterson, Graham Mole, Tini Nkube, Cameron De Bastos. Oh, gotta love old Tabasco sauce out there. Jason McGregor, Jean-Ray Bertha, Loic Randabel, Ramona Yonka, William Wentworth, Hansi Myberg. A big shout out to Hansi. He does a lot of work behind the scenes and doesn't quite get as much practice as he needs. And then lying in 26th place is Darren Miller. A little bit of a smaller grid to what we used to seeing. A lot of drivers caught out by load shedding and going and keeping an eye out on how that's all going to affect the championship. But I do want to chuck it out here. We've got a massive change in the front with the likes of Ronaldo Boersma in first place, with Daniel De Villiers in second, Andre Serradio in third, Grant Sebastian in fourth. Janovan, if you want to talk about throwing cat amongst the pigeons, I mean, these are names we don't usually see starting at the front end of the field.
But Stephen, that's what you get sometimes in these wet races, because there might be some of the, and I won't call them slower drivers, but there might be some of the midfield drivers that actually thrive in these wet conditions, and now all of a sudden you see them out in front, and you might see some of your normal front runners, a little bit further down the field. So let's say a change is as good as a holiday. So this might be a nice change up in the field. And, we're going to see some different guys racing each other tonight.
Well, it's definitely going to be a monumental task for everyone to go and navigate their way around. 55 minutes around this circuit is no joke. If you want to talk about the hardest racing we have seen this season, Oulton Park in the wet will be by far the hardest circuit this season. Second to that will be at the end of the season, will be Valencia, as will be the first time the championship heads to Valencia. So not everyone has laps and laps and laps and laps around the circuit compared to the likes of Kyalami, Nürburgring, all the usuals. But I do think, and I will put my hand on the block right now, and you can bring down the axe, this is going to be the hardest race of the season, and whoever can finish this race at the sharp end of the field, or even just finish without falling off the circuit, is a driver to be so well aware of, because they can handle some of the toughest conditions and toughest circuits out there. That's my opinion. I think Rain and Oulton Park is the equivalent of going around Nordschleife 24.
Not on the way.
Not on the wing, but, you know, as it stands in the dry, but Oulton Park in the wing. All right, as we make our way around the final corner, down the hill, up the hill, you can see everyone snaking, getting ready for the start. All eyes are going to be on Ronaldo Boersma, along with Daniel de Villiers in second place, Andre Serradio in third, Grant Sebastian in fourth, and away they go. The grid being very tentative there. Ronaldo Boersma getting a fantastic start. Andre Serradio trying to go up on the inside and managing to eke his way through. But Ronaldo Boersma, well, he wasn't sticking around for this. He decided to get on the gas a little bit early.
No, you know, he maybe took it a bit less cautiously than the other guys. You know, he basically checked out in the front on that start. Brilliant start by Boersma, followed by de Villiers. Some of the comments say that we need to watch out for de Villiers in the wet, as he is very quick. But, Stephen, so far, I must say, very clean start by the guys. I had to look further down the field. No real contacts, no real accidents. I think we had one spin out in the back, but that was about it.
It does look like Daniel Petro pushing a little bit hard. Slight contact between Killian Rayner and Daniel Rowe at the moment. Daniel Rowe getting pushed out very, very wide. That's allowed Jan van Merwe to make his way through. But as you said, very, very well done to all the drivers. And pit window is now open as well. So we're going to see a few guys trying to move their way forward and see how this is all going to turn out for them. Daniel Petro dealing with Ryan Ottens just ahead of him. And Andre Serradio now checking his rearview mirrors and seeing that these two Ferraris are starting to close in on him. Ronaldo Boersma pulling a gap of 1.7 seconds away from Daniel de Villiers at the moment. And this is going to be very, very interesting as time goes on. Gentlemen, now the pit window is open, so technically you guys can go and pile into the pits right now to get their pit stop done and dusted. Is it worth it with these conditions to just get in as early as you can and then go for a little bit of a later run? As you see, Grant Sebastian getting the drive on Daniel de Villiers heading into turn one. Ryan Ottens getting the, well, never mind, Daniel Petro getting the fastest lap time of the race so far.
Well, to answer your question, Stephen, around a shorter track like this, it is a little bit shorter than the other tracks we've been on. So if you don't have the pace to keep in front of the pack, you do run the risk of making that pit stop and then falling back onto the leaders and starting to get lapped, and that's going to hurt your pace. So for me personally, it's going to be a case of, if you find yourself a nice, comfortable running place, you know, just go at it and see how far into the race you can go. As we have a look at Daniel de Villiers making his way around. But look at Boersma. He's opened up a huge gap there. 2.6 seconds already out in front.
Yeah, that Porsche is not hanging around at all. A little bit further down, you've got Ryan Ottens and Andre Serradio. They're trying to close down on Grant Sebastian under braking, but landing up, just giving small nudges to one another. It does look like Daniel Petro is going to try and make a move, second guesses it, decides he's going to tuck back into the slipstream, but a couple of cars have opted to pit on the first lap. Taking a look, Kurt Glaskin, Essie Estes, Daniel Rowe, Cameron de Bastos, Graham Moll, Quan Duplessis, Ramona Yonka, all deciding to go and dive into the pits early on in this race to ensure that they get a little bit more of a run. So, a bit of a change up there, but I wonder how it's all going to work as we go back. Conrad Folsking of the KSR Popo car, and just a big shout out to this little car. Been wanting to get it out on the stream. A little bit of a homage to our JMPD here in South Africa, so hats off to Conrad for going and giving a bit of a homage. There was a car racing, I can say a couple of years ago, I think it's still around, which was a BMW that was in the same JMPD colors, and there's Alan Patterson diving into the dirt, or into the pits,
It's into the dirt, you say?
Well, it's sort of dirty there. I think all the water's kind of thrown all the mud from the grandstands down into the pits. But yeah, big shout out. Good to see the color scheme now being shown on stream. I've been looking for it for ages. I won't lie.
Yeah, it is kind of a pretty livery, that if you look at it this way, and maybe also a little bit of a. Do you think there's a little bit of a mental game going on when you see in your rearview mirror the police staring at you?
Oh, I think it would be quite a fun one, but see Jason McGregor all kinds of wrong, outbrakes himself. He was trying to stabilize himself, and there's the spin, but just trying to get himself organized before the corner, and unfortunately everything happening a little bit too quick, and falling down quite a few positions there. As we head back up through the field, Andre Serradio, Ryan Otten still playing a bit of tag with one another. But it is going to be an interesting race. Darren Miller actually dropping a little bit further down as well. He got a little bit of a slow run. And I actually want to go back because something I want to bring up. If your traction control is a little bit too high, you actually run the risk of not getting the power down as much as needed in the wet weather. So in the case of, like here, your traction control a little bit too far down, you catch a nasty little tank slapper, and that ends you further down through the field. So it's something we've got to be so careful of. And I just want to also chuck out here that we've got a message from Warren Chian, busy going and saying that he popped his head out the window in the UK and RaceFace has actually got it
spot
correct.
on.
It is raining in the UK. Now, that's impressive. Thank you, Warren. That made my evening. As you see, Hansi Meyerberg losing out a drive to William Wentworth. William managing to get by. Didn't look like too much of a fight there, but Jason McGregor is also going to come at him. And Hansi not putting up too much of a fight, actually allowing the guys to get around him quite easily. He's not too perturbed by it right now. Do you think he's playing the game of wait it out, see where the drivers go, and then go on an attack from there?
I hope he is. Oh, whoopsie.
That looks
Now
like,
let's go back and have a look at that one.
let's go and see. This is Loic Randabel, who was making his way around and got a little bit of a tank slapper coming out of turn 3. Do see one of the Spinelli Ferrari cars going and chasing, and understeers off circuit, trying to bring it back, going on the brakes a little bit, just trying to steer it out, fishtails back, clips the Ferrari, and around it we go. But I mean, so easy to do. Tini and Kube managing to carry on with his race, but there's nothing you can do at that point. You've locked your brakes, you trying to steer the car out, you just became a passenger in your own vehicle.
No, I mean, it's so difficult to slow these cars down on this wet grass. As you said, you're a passenger. There's absolutely almost no difference if you brake or not brake. You're just trying to keep the car out the wall and trying to minimize the damage at that point.
Well, I also want to point out, if you're in a close race like this, which is absolutely fantastic when you've got a high graphics card and Daniel Camacho's Petro going and understeering and taking a couple of the bollards away. But let's go to Ryan Ottens a little bit further up. He's after Grant Sebastian. Now, on a lower graphics card, you don't get to render in as much of the rain, but a lot of guys have gone and updated the graphics card through the 10 series right into the 40 series, and the rain particles on the windscreen does make it rather difficult. The closer you get, the more spray kicks up, the less you see, the less of your brake boards you're going to see. As you can see, Ryan Otten's just failing to see the brake boards on the left-hand side, having to just guess using muscle memory under braking to ensure that he doesn't go into the back of his competitors, but at the same time be able to keep up a okay pace in these very difficult conditions, which makes overtaking absolutely frightening, because it is a gambling game at this point. Because, well, you just better hope someone falls off, and especially here at Oulton Park, it does look like Grant Sebastian running out wide, and for a track that's already a follow the leader circuit, you've got to be so aware of it. As Grant Sebastian now trying to get back onto the gas, but here comes Kylian Reyna and Andre Serradio trying to chase him down it is going to be a monumental battle to try and close your way back up through the field.
I mean, absolutely, Steven. I think at this case, that's maybe the strategy that Myberg is following at this stage, just trying to keep it on the black top. Because I had a look through the field at a couple of the guys. There's a couple of cars that look very lively, especially in the rear end. We're looking at Andre Serradio now. I've kept an eye on him here on the side screen. That rear end of that Mercedes does look very loose, and he has struggled through a lot of corners. So, as I said, maybe Myberg is just, tippy-toeing his way around and trying to keep it on the tarmac.
So it's a couple of guys going in, opting to get in the pits. So let's go through, like Essie Esterhuis, Alan Patterson, Daniel Rowe, along with Kurt Glasshagen, Cameron de Bastos, Graham Moll, and Ramona Yonka still giving it everything they got. We have lost one competitor, unfortunately, but with 26 starts, 25 currently still on the circuit. Do you think the pit stop early on in the race was the right idea? Or do you think lengthening it out is going to be the best option here as the race continues? I think, and this is from my personal opinion, getting in and out quite quickly out of the pit so you can keep the rhythm of the circuit, especially as you start to form a dry line or a very subtle dry line here at Oulton Park. You've got to keep in the rhythm of it. So I'd rather get my pit stop done early, get back into the rhythm, and try and keep myself going. Considering I'm still trying to figure it out in lap 1, at least I'm not trying to break the rhythm halfway through.
Well, I think that's going to depend on... Oh, we see Ryan Ottens off.
That's Ronaldo Boersma. That's first place. That is first place. Ronaldo Boersma going on to the brakes. It was all going well. What happened to the Porsche? Runs out wide, gets a little bit of a tank slapper. Gets onto the drive and now heading into turn 1. He's going to try and get on the brakes, and that Porsche's just not slowing down. It's just going round. Oh, slight collection of the wall, light aero damage there. But what is going to hurt is Daniel de Villiers has now taken first place. Ryan Ottens has taken second. Ronaldo Boersma has dropped back 2.2 seconds. He was leading by 3.5 seconds at one point. Now dropping all the way down the field, so he has to work double time to try and catch up. And with a little bit of light aero damage, that's not going to work out.
Yeah, especially in the wet conditions, that's not what you want. Well, me living up to my name, getting the names wrong. But, Steve, as you said, that has released Daniel de Villiers. He's now out in front, leading by 2.1 seconds. Further at the back, oh, Van der Merwe. What happened there?
Let's go and take a look what happened to Van der Merwe, as looked like he got onto the brakes, and unfortunately the Ferrari disagreed with him and went like a bucking bronco. Is he fighting that stallion, hoping that it can keep going? The spray, the rooster tails off the back of these GT3s is quite hectic. And did he maybe get caught out under braking? Did so, tried going up on the inside of Andre Serradio, not realizing how close he was. Took evasive maneuvers and managed to spin it out the way. But just at getting close, and that's it. Usually you think you can get away with it, but sometimes not. William Wentworth with a severe amount of damage. Let's see what happened to his car. Does look like one of the Hybrid Academy Porsches right on his tail. And, contact between the two, spikes into the wall. That's going to be a fair amount of damage onto his car. Comes back nearly in front of his teammate.
That was close.
And there would have been a very interesting conversation in that team pit if there was contact. But William Wentworth now having to fight the car his way around, and going to be looking at repairing it at some point, as Alan Patterson right onto the back of him. But William Wentworth is dealing with a serious amount of understeer. He's going to keep going. Low Crandabell though, landing up with a drive-through penalty. So, is this something we're going to see a little bit more? Now, I can only talk about Oulton Park from my experience in a different sim. Oulton Park is the least forgiving in terms of, corner cuts. You will get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Now seeing it with the likes of ACC, where you get 3 warnings and then you're out, well, Loic Randabel is living up to the team name at the moment. Completely washed at this point as he's trying to figure out his race.
Yeah, for a moment on that camera angle, looked like one of the cars went straight, but I was mistaken. It was purely the camera angle. Looking at Wentworth making his way around, it does seem, Stephen, like he's going to keep the car going. So maybe, you know, for him, the car does not feel that bad. He feels like he has not lost sufficient pace to get it into the pits. He's now involved in that battle with Alan Patterson, trying to close up to Randabel, which has the drive-through penalty. And then further up the field is Myberg from them. So I think he's deciding just to stick it out and maybe leave the pit stop to a little bit later, because it does not look like Alan Patterson can make his way past him at the moment.
He keeps hunting at the line.
On the grass. He's on the grass.
Oh, contact with Alan Patterson. Alan takes out the sign, drags it along. Everyone taking evasive maneuvers at this point. But, well, let's just change the race for Alan Patterson. William Wentworth taking a little bit of damage here. And, yeah, that's the thing. Just going and hooking a wheel offline with a bit of damage, and you obviously get into the pits, but just a little bit offline can land up in a world of hurt very, very quickly. Now hard braking into the chicane. Will Andre Serradio be able to put his nose in? Tries. Oh! Contact between Grant and Sebastian and the likes of Andre Serradio. Andre Serradio trying to pull himself back, but big loser there for losing out 3 positions on an almighty dive. Further up, though, Daniel De Villiers has got a Ryan Otten's problem, Lamborghini versus Ferrari. But there is drama all over the circuit.
Yeah, never a dull moment around here. Jam-packed action, but I wanted to just mention Alan Patterson sustained that damage, Stephen. He's already completed his pit stop, so he will either have to pit again or live with that damage until the end of the race.
Well, looking at the weather at the moment, it seems like we're going to be caught up in 30 minutes of rain. It's going to sustain like this throughout the race. Track temperature at 24 degrees. So I'm going to try and figure out how this is going to work. It's going to be something close. It's going to be something of a battle for all our competitors to really stick it all together. Nicholas Manuel coming off circuit, so let's actually find out what happened to him. As we've seen cars dropping off the track left, right and center at this point, and throwing themselves all the way through the field, and also putting a wrench in a couple of people's plans as well. So Nicholas Manuel, as we keep a look on with the BMW, trying to slow it down, nose tucks in, rear comes out, slides it round, and narrowly missing one of the Ferraris, but definitely not having a lot of help around the circuit. I've got a question. While you're in that sort of situation, you're spinning out of control, you're in a bit of a battle like that, your tires. Now, we always go for that perfect tire pressure.
Yeah.
Wets, same sort of thing. There's a sweet spot. Getting a spin like this, the track is not hot enough to push those tire pressures through the roof, but it does scrub a bit of life out of them. Your thoughts onto this?
Not just that, you know, even though it is wet, they will pick up a little bit of temperature as well that you now need to bring back down again. So, yeah, you will definitely, you won't do your tire life any good by picking up spins and sliding all over the place. I don't know if the tire life is better on the grass, Steve. Maybe on the grass you'll save a little bit of tire life. No pun intended. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's yeah. There's all a little bit of movements going on, and well, you've got to be so cautious. But for people like SES Days, who's in 13th place with Kurt chasing him down, along with Daniel Rowe, they've made some good pace to claw themselves up. I see a bit of Andre Serradio landing up in a world of hurt. Let's actually take a look. I see Nicholas Manuel also sustaining something. So something's gone on with both these cars. But we want to keep an eye on Andre Serradio at the moment, as we did talk about that Merc being a little bit lively on the rear. Nicholas Manuel is behind him in the BMW. And Andre Serradio catching a tank slapper.
Replay.
Oh, coming across. Oh, drives forward into the rear axle. of Nicholas Manuel. So Nicholas Manuel taking a nasty hit to that right rear of note.
Well, I mentioned that accident or the spin of Seradio in the first place was kind of a replay of, was it Manuel's spin? Same place, same action. Unfortunately, Nicholas Manuel became part of the action very quickly. But jam-packed, I think we're going to see a lot more action before this race is done in 35 minutes.
It's going to be a very, very interesting one. One person that isn't going to be smiling, though, is Cameron de Bastos, down in 23rd position. Does not enjoy the circuit, and now is running with he had a bit of a drive-through penalty as well. So he did say his nickname was Sasquatch, but I don't think the Sasquatch likes having his fur a bit wet at the moment.
Yeah, and that Porsche is not looking very shiny and new at the moment. It does look like that front end sustained a little bit of damage. And Tim just catching up again, looking at the trees.
He's busy fighting out. But take a look at what's going on here. This is between the likes of Ronaldo Boersma trying to catch up to Ryan Ottens. He has pulled up a bit of pace, 1.8 seconds. Was quicker in Sector 1. And he is pulling Daniel de Villiers. So don't take Daniel de Villiers out of the equation just as yet. But Ronaldo Boersma on a mighty charge to try and claw his way back through the field, but Killian Rayner has got the fastest lap time of the race of 1:43.060. So I think this is going to be a rather interesting run for every single person. The guys are going to have to try and figure out what's more beneficial, what's going to be the right way to pull themselves through, and where is it all going to be.
Yeah, I think, at this stage, Stephen, it's more a case of the guys who haven't pitted. Are you finding yourself running in a comfortable space? Are you finding yourself being held up maybe by the car in front? We know Oulton Park is not the easiest place in the world to overtake. You mentioned earlier it's kind of a follow a leader. There is one or two places where you can stick your nose in and get an overtake done. This last corner being one of them if you're very brave. The exit of the corner is very tricky. But looking at de Villiers, he's closely following Boersma, 0.4, and yep, never mind.
Boersma going and having that tail end snap underneath him, dropping down. That's allowed Killian Rayner to get by, and Boersma having to rejoin ahead of everyone. I mean, these are things that can happen.
It's the third car that spun out in exactly the same fashion on exactly the same corner. And that's what makes it very, very difficult. I mean, the margin of error is so small as we have a look now with Boersma going around. He's dropped back. Now we've got a D'Amatos Preto not far behind him. He'll have to be very careful, otherwise he's going to find himself in another battle.
Well, this is the thing. The guys are having to try and figure out what they can do, what's going to be the best way to move forward. I mean, these are very, very tricky conditions for everyone, and what are they going to do? How are they going to figure it out? What's going to be the best effect for them during this race? And I wonder what is going to be the thought process for a lot of these teams, a lot of the drivers trying to think what's going to be the best idea.
Well, the thing also is, you need to try and figure out if you pit now, where you're going to feed back out again. Are you going to be in open air, or are you going to find yourself in a battle? So a lot of things to think about, and a lot of the time, these guys don't have people in their ears chatting to them, telling them what the gaps are. They basically only looking at their heads-up display and can see the deltas that they see on there. They don't know what's happening 40 seconds behind them. That what's the time of a pit stop here for a splash and dash? Must be in the region of about 25 to 30 seconds.
So looking at SES de Hace's pit stop, he was pretty much 18.519 seconds. Then you've got Kurt, who did a 17.3. So I would roughly put it around about 17.5 to 18 seconds without, just for a splash and dash, fueling and a get back out there, no tires involved. Andre Serradio scoring a drive-through penalty, not going to be the last, that is for sure. And I did try and do something a little bit different, and let's see if it does pull up as well. and just showing a bit of our track state. It's saying green at the moment because it seems fairly warm, but giving a get an idea of what our weather is going to be looking like as time goes on. So, well, our system tries to refresh itself. Let's give it a little bit. We're doing this thing on the run. Doing this on the run.
We're making it up as we go along at
That's
this
it.
stage.
Totally trying to figure it out.
Yeah. We're not quite self-sure what we're doing, but we're getting there.
We're doing something.
Yeah, Andres Serradio going from bad to worse. He's had a spin or two, now getting that drive through, and he's yet to complete his pit stop. So he's making this into a 2 pit stop race. But Stephen, you said, some of the guys also had a look at it. They were stationary for 18 or so seconds, but what is the total time from pit entry to pit exit? That's the thing you need to be concerned about to see where you're going to feed out again.
I think it's going to be a roughly looking about 20 seconds. Roughly. That would be my thought process into it, and what is going to be the idea to it. Whether it works, whether it doesn't, that is to be figured out by our drivers, because that all varies on how much damage they take to the vehicles, how much fuel have they got left in the tanks. Things like that come into play. And when you're in the case of Ronaldo Boersma, who did launch off a line, tells me that he is running a little bit lighter. Daniel Petro, maybe with a little bit of a heavier car, has been helping him through the race, and we're starting to see the effects of the race going a little bit more on Ronaldo Boersma.
I mean, absolutely, but looking out in front, Brian Otten 7.3 seconds ahead of Daniel De Villiers, and he is 5.6 seconds ahead of this little battle of Ronaldo Boersma and Daniel De Petro. I think certainly Ryan Otten's Daniel De Villiers, they're going to try and push it as long as possible. But now Daniel De Petro, he might decide that he's being held up by Boersma and decide to pit earlier.
Just seeing that one of the Volt Racing Porsches diving out the way, and doesn't look like there's too much of a hold up there, but definitely Daniel losing out a bit of time and is going to have to take note of the situation going on. But Gideon Rayner, just a heads up to him, he's up in the 8th position, done his pit stop, so far the fastest lap time of the race, and he's slowly closing down. His lap times have been in the 143, 144s, which is close to what Conrad Volskink is busy doing, and is looking to try and close down that gap as well. Just taking a look, yellow flags, and that is Cameron de Bastos who landed up. And will it be the same? I've got to take a look. So this is coming down the hill into turn 3, gets it, understeers.
Oh, understeer this time.
Understeer, and comes across. So there's 2 ways that this is working that I can see personally. Drivers are having either too much understeer coming down when there's a change of camber in the circuit, change of gradients. The guys are having a bit of understeer as everything collapses in on itself. It goes and squats down, so everything is far too soft. Or others running things a tad harder and landing up with a world of problems. So this is why it's going to be a very interesting race for it, because car setup is very, very important. But this is where you can go too far one way versus the other. We talk about being fast and loose is great, but that means your car's stiff, which means you get more oversteer. Too much making it too soft on your suspension, along with the dampeners, your anti-roll bars completely taken off or just disengaged. That all comes into play. It causes the car to move around too much, and it lands up feeling like a seesaw under braking and accelerating. You got it all the way to the rear, all the way to the front. You're moving around, and that can land up causing the car to be very, very unstable and wear you out over time, because you've got that constant seesaw effect. For anyone that wants an explanation of that sort of thing, other than climbing onto a seesaw for an hour until you go blue in the face, think of it like being on a roller coaster. You're waiting for whatever it's going to do. It takes you uphill, you lean all the way back, as we see Daniel Demetrios Petro getting a... That is a drive.
That's not going to help.
That's not going to help. But where did he make it? Let's take a look. Let's go into the cockpit and let's see where he actually got it from. And I think it's our lovely little chicane, which I've been worried about the whole race. It's one that you can lose up to 3 seconds. Take too much of the curb, like there.
There we go.
That's where you score the penalty. That's
and there.
Yeah, there we go. 1, 2, finished. And that's how you score your drive-through penalty. Very interesting to see how guys pushing the boundaries now starting to feel it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to drop back through the field. Another one that has scored a penalty and still needing to do his pit stop. So it's not going to work out that well for him at the end of the day. He has actually dropped back a little bit from Boersma, with Ryan Ottens out in the front. Steven now 10.4 seconds ahead. So he is opening up a hefty gap. As I said earlier, I think he's going to go long as he can before he makes his pit stop. Having a look at Daniel de Villiers in second place. He has got Ronaldo Boersma 3.5 seconds behind him. So at this stage, he's still sitting fairly comfortable. Ronaldo has clawed that gap back a little bit. It was about 6.4 seconds previously. So I don't know if Daniel made a mistake, resulting in him to drop further back from Ryan into the clutches of Ronaldo. But at this stage, he's still got a little bit of a comfortable lead over Ronaldo. And then Ronaldo, he's got Daniel Demetrios Petro behind him. That's got the drive-through penalty. So I don't think he's going to be that much worried about him, because Grant Sebastian is a further 11.2 seconds down the road.
Now that's a teammate a little bit too far back to give it a little bit of support. But Grant Sebastian has got Nicholas Manuel trying to close down on him. Nicholas Manuel's been having a very interesting race, to say the least, as I see a couple of them going and jumping the curb a little bit too much. He's got Conrad Volsking trying to chase him down. That KSR Popo car doing everything possible. And then we've got Killian Rayner, Essie Essays, and 9th, 10th, Kurt Glasshagen. Daniel Rowe going side by side with Jason McGregor and managing to get by. Jason McGregor just having no fight compared to the likes of that Mercedes. It just seems to be a little bit more stacked up and a bit more comfortable around the circuit. Jason McGregor down into 12th position. Jan van der Merwe in 13th. 14th, Tini Nkube. Darren Miller in 15th. 16th, Andres Aradia. Graham Moll. Romano Jonker. Alan Patterson. Jean-Ray Bertha. Cameron de Bastos. William Wentworth. Loic Randable. And Hansi Myberg rounding out our race at the moment. 24 cars out on the circuit. 26 started. And it is a monstrous race out here at Oulton Park. And I take my hat to every single driver and say, well done to get this far in. 22 minutes and 50 seconds left of the race. So it's not over yet. Anything can happen. But sometimes, yeah, we always talk about whether you got Lady Luck in the pits or you got Murphy sitting with that number 10 socket. Well, at this point with Oulton Park and the rain, as many drivers are starting to find out, and I think this is another one we're going to see once again getting a little bit of a... This is down the hill again. Lady Luck is sitting at the hotel, and Murphy's sitting there with all the spanners. But this is coming down... Same corner, coming down the hill, change of gradients, turns it in, change of camber, gets a little bit tail happy, and there we go. Once again, it's not under braking, it's lift off oversteer by the looks of it.
Yeah, as the cars turn into the corner, the rear end goes. So I think that is something that the guys will look at through the course of tomorrow, maybe rectify it for the race tomorrow evening. So, I mean, Stephen, although we know this has started out as a practice session for the Thursday races, it has now become a full-fledged championship. But still, the guys will take the lessons learned tonight onto tomorrow evening for the longer race.
Well, the thing is, a lot of what racing is done at the moment, even though it's a sprint race, is one mandatory pit stop. as you said, originally it started out as a practice session, get used to the cars, get a little bit of a feel of the grid, and it's turned into a full-fledged race. The guys are also going to be able to take valuable data from this race. Go and take a look through the Motec, see what the car was doing under proper race conditions, where you're getting pushed offline, you're racing as hard as you can. You're basically in the mind frame of just the mind frame that you're going to have to carry over to your next races. You get to see exactly what your car is doing. So it is an advantage for tomorrow, but the thing is, you can't think about tomorrow tonight. You have to think about now and the corner ahead of you, because, well, as a couple of drivers learned, take your eye off the ball, and Murphy's got the number 10 socket and the 13 spanner ready and waiting for you.
I mean, absolutely. At the moment, it's all about apexes and exits. But, I've chatted to some of the guys previously, and what makes these wet races so difficult is the track conditions in the race is not the same as the track conditions that you are practicing on. Because remember, now you've got 23 cars going around the track, clearing a little bit, as we see a little bit of side-by-side action now.
That's
as
between the teammates. That's
between
Petra and Grand Sebastian.
Grand Sebastian. Now, they are just duking it out a little bit for position. But just coming back to my point, Stephen, with 24 cars going around the track, it's not exactly the same track conditions as to when you were practicing all by your lonesome self in the early hours of the morning. So you're going to get a little bit more data this way. I know in the practice server it was very busy earlier on, which is a similar situation, a lot of cars on track, but not all those cars are going around at the same time as you have now.
Well, this is a thing to bring up, is you now having cars clear a lot of the puddles off apexes, and as the race goes on, there's the puddles getting slowly kicked off the circuit, which is always great, and it helps rubber it in a little bit better. And this is where a lot of guys that do practice with AI in their practice sessions does get a little bit more of an advantage, as they get to feel out as the track conditions change due to vehicles and drivers going and changing the line. And much, as you pointed out, very, very different to the likes of been racing by yourself. Graham Moll out on circuit though, he's been keeping it together. He's going after Andre Serradio as quick as possible. Andre Serradio has dropped back quite far down. I mean, let's go and take a look at our losers and winners in this one. Ryan Otten's up 5 positions. He's up into first place. Daniel De Villiers, he's exactly where he started, down 2 places is Ronaldo Bursma. Daniel Demetrios Petra up 4 positions. Grant Sebastian down 1. Nicholas Manuel up 3. Gideon Rayner up 3. Conrad Forsking up 6 positions. SESA's down 4 positions. Kurt Lassagen in up 10th place, up 3 positions. Daniel Rowe down 4 positions. He did an early pit stop that seems to be a little bit not working in his favor right now. Jan van Merwe started in 12th, is in 12th. Tinian Kube up 5 positions. He started in 18th. He's now in 13th. Darren Miller up 12 positions. Started in 26th. Now up into 14th. Andre Serradio, though, down 12 positions. Started in 3rd and took a heavy loss right down through the field into 15th. Graham Mull has gone up 1 position. He's in 16th after starting in 17th. Jason McGregor down up 3 positions. Ramona Yonka up 5 positions. Cameron DeBastos, same position as where he started, despite having the penalties. William Wentworth up 4 positions. Loic Granville up 1 position. John Ray Bertha down 1 position. And Hansi Meiberg up 2 positions. 23 cars still out on circuit. Still lots of racing going on. 17 minutes and 11 seconds left of the race.
Yeah, just one thing I want to point out. Daniel De Villiers in 2nd position. He's made up quite some ground on Ryan Ottens. He's closed that gap now by more than 4 seconds. So, Stephen, if he keeps on closing the gap like that with 17, just under 17 minutes to go, this race is by no means over.
No, that's it. But remember, they've still got to pit as Ronaldo Borsma
again
getting rotated round. And let's see what happened. Caught up to one of the other Porsches. That is Graham Mull, I think. He's caught up behind, getting caught into the spray, runs out wide, gets let past just fine, which is absolutely well done work on the back markers. for having track awareness. Got to give him a big shout out for that. Under braking, understeers off the circuit, catches the grass and goes roundy, facing the wrong direction. I think Ronaldo Boersma starting to feel the frustration, opting to go into the pits, gives him enough time to get a breather before heading back out onto the circuit. I think at that point it's actually a good idea to just allow you to stop, take a breath, reevaluate, refocus, and get back in it.
Yeah, just take something to drink, just calm down, just go woo-saw, and then as you go out the pits, try and get back in the groove, because he's had one or two spins, and I think the emotions might be running a little bit higher in that Porsche than normal, so just recompose yourself and get back on the track. As we have a look at Daniel De Villiers making his way around, he is 5.8 seconds now behind Ryan Otten's. He is hunting him down, Stephen. He's trying to get to him before the end of the race. Both of them still need to do their pit stops, so at this stage we don't know what the feeling in those cars are, but this far into the race there can't be that much different in fuel levels.
No, not at all, and both cars now starting to feel it, and the guessing game starts to work in of what's going to work through. See, Tini Nkube has got a drive-through penalty going and incurring it, and once again I do think that chicane, it's around about turn 6, turn 7 that is taking into effect for a lot of these drivers as they maneuver their way around, coming into play, and is going to be a big challenge. As we do see that was Myberg, that was Hunty Myberg, he was on the grass, and I think he just bailed out the way to avoid the oncoming cars behind him. Let's actually take a look at what happened to Hunty Myberg. He was sitting a little bit alone, sees everyone in the rearview mirrors, goes under braking, understeers off circuit, and instead of rejoining immediately on circuit, he's going to just come off the throttle, allow the cars to come by, and then slowly feed his way back on, looking into the rearview mirrors. So not just piling back into the circuit, which is what you naturally want to do, as we see him off once again. And do you think that's understeer coming into play on that car? Because that's the same corner. Now this is caught out every single driver. Every driver suffering the same thing. Come down the hill.
Who put oil on the track?
Well, this is it. Under braking, down the gears, understeers, comes off. Okay, so we've seen understeer and we've seen oversteer. Same corner seems to be exacerbating the problem for all the drivers.
But and it's not, we don't see the front engine cars understeer and the mid engine cars oversteer, because we saw Seradio going around, which was in the Merc, a front engine car. We've seen the Porsche understeer there, we've seen the BMW understeer, we've seen the Porsche spin there. I think, Stephen, it's got to do with the camera in the road, because that is kind of a negative camera. You've got almost a negative, wrong place to get it out the tires. Well done.
Yeah, drive-through penalty come into play. You managed to drift it around, and Loic not having a fun evening. This will be his second drive-through penalty that has been received due to track cuts. Now, I want to talk about the mental game here in a situation like that, where it just doesn't seem to be going your way, and the frustration starts to build. And, well, ironically, I had this in a GT4 on the same circuit, but the frustration starts to build. You start trying to push yourself. You're trying to think of what on earth are you doing differently? What is different from practice? How on earth is this all working? And you eventually start making crucial mistakes into it, and that's namely starts coming into your gearing, where you start actually gearing down too far, so you're actually locking up the rear axle into it. So where you're usually holding second gear, you're bumping it down to first. Where you're usually in third, you're now in second. You start trying to slow the car down too rapidly at that point. You start trying to stomp on things a little bit too hard, and it all comes into play. And especially when it comes to the end of this race, this is not what you want to do it. And just seeing Cameron de Bastos saying, unfortunately, he had to retire the car, and scoring a puncture was his problem. As we see Ramon Yonka trying to come back on circuit. No, this is little things that are starting to come into play, and it's starting to come into effect.
Absolutely, you start doubting yourself, but Cameron raised a very important point. The practice session before the race started was dry. I mean, me and you were sitting in the practice session, we were watching the lap times that the guys are doing, figuring out what would be a good lap time. And as we went into the server, I looked to my left on my other screen and I saw rain predicted in half an hour. So I think a lot of these guys might not have been prepared for the rain.
Got caught out, and taking a look at the grandstands, some very brave UK citizens going and standing with short sleeves in the rain, no problem, arms folded, not too cold. See Hansi Meyerberg is scoring a bit of a drive-through penalty. A couple of guys still need to pit. Ryan Ottens, Daniel De Villiers, Nicholas Manuel, Conrad Volskink, along with Darren Miller. It's all needing to pit, but most of the field have already pitted. Gideon Rayner, though, in 4th place, going to make his way through. Now I'm going to throw a cat amongst the pigeon. You practiced in the dry, or you practiced in the wet. Did you practice in the wet, and with it getting this dark?
Yeah, it's at this stage, I think you need to prepare for anything. So it might, who knows, within the next 10 minutes we might have pitch dark.
Yeah, it is getting a little bit hectic out there as we're heading into nearly 9 p.m. on sim time as these guys slide their way through. Gideon Rayner trying to keep it out of the wall. But Ryan Ottens, Daniel De Villiers, Nicholas Manuel, Conrad Volskink, along with Darren Miller, will have to go, and bear in mind they've only got 8 minutes left of their pit stop time as we see William Wentworth, and this was a yellow flag brought up by our marshals. Big shout out to our marshals. They've been working incredibly hard, and without them we wouldn't be racing. But let's actually take a look, see what happened to William Wentworth. Do a little bit of a heli cam to see that. Just too much on the inside. Tried going too far right, and there was an old thing that was said to me that I think you and Christian Deploy actually said to me is, put the white line in the middle of the car. That's why I don't do it.
Yeah, but Oulton Park, the white lines are kind of on the edge of the track. There's absolutely nothing beyond them, so this might be a bad idea tonight.
Well, as it's getting a bit darker, the rain starting to ease up by the looks of it. I don't see the drops on the ground, but it is a greasy circuit out there. As we see Daniel going and losing it. Also clouting the wall. But I just want to point out, I don't see the rain coming down. So it has lightened up on rain, but the track now in a very, very greasy state and in the dark is not going to make things any easier for these drivers as they have to slug it around, because it's not optimum conditions to go to slicks, yet it's not optimum conditions to be on wet weather tires still.
Daniel Bartos, another drive-through for him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Scoring another drive-through, and that's 2 drive-throughs, and I think that's for taking the chicane. Hansi Meyerberg also with a drive-through as well. So this race has developed into something very, very interesting. Some drivers may be looking at it going, oh, well, this is not going to be the greatest. Other drivers going and deciding that this is well worth a bit of fun, because it does throw the spanner in the works, the cat amongst the pigeons, you may say, with the rain and darker conditions, making it a very, very challenging run around the track. And I've got to say, it's really been an interesting race, not mainly on the side-by-side action, because this track just naturally leans itself on follow the leader, but in terms of strategy and where guys' practice has been, whether it's been in the dark, in the wet, or in the dry, or have they done a bit of both? I know when we were sitting in the practice servers, it was a bit more bright lights compared to this, and it was a little bit drier on. But with the track conditions as it stands right now, I've got to say, this is really, really fun, personally. But I'm in the box here with a nice heater. I've got some drinks poured to the side for me. You know, the usual story.
You got the jetty purring in the background, all those kind of stuff.
I'm pulling the James Hunt. Let me go and grab my drink.
But there's another aspect involved here. It does look like, looking at the chat, that one or two drivers has been caught out by the wet. Now, we mentioned earlier on, we were in the practice server, it was dry, it was nice, sunny. Do you think there's a couple of guys that, aren't racing tonight and might be looking at the stream and going, oh crap, what's in store tomorrow evening?
There's definitely going to be, oh bothers. That's definitely going to be a proper reality for a lot of drivers. 28 laps, so 5 minutes and 15 seconds left of the race. 4 minutes and 11 seconds of pit window for Ryan Ottens, Daniel de Villiers, Nicholas Manuel to get into the pits. Gideon Rayner in 4th place is in a prime position to jump up if he can keep up the pace and close down the gap to Nicholas Manuel. Nicholas Manuel, though, is about 32 seconds away from Daniel de Villiers, so I think he's going to be a little bit too far there. Ronaldo Boersma down in 5th, Grant Sebastian in 6th, 7th, Conrad Volsking, S.E.S. Hayes, Daniel Rowe, and Kurt Klaashagen in 10th place. And it does look like we've got Boersma once again landing up with a problem and getting contact with Grant Sebastian. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is what we want to talk about. It's now a lot darker in the cars. I mean, take a look. You can't see much there. Get on the brakes. Slip and slide. Barrels to the wall. Trying to pull himself back. Spins out. Trying to get himself going. And it does look like trying to hang on the edge of the circuit. Battles and has Grant Sebastian to the side of him. These drivers are starting to feel it because not only is it greasy out on the circuit with a light rain, but also with it being so dark and brake markers becoming non-existent, not only because of the darkness, but also for guys that have, well, thought to clean up the circuit by removing them. It does make life a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I do think he was not expecting the Ferrari to be there on the outside, because normally the racing line is on the inside. But with these wet conditions, we've seen a lot of cars running wide through that hairpin, and unfortunately that resulted into a little bit of contact as we see Volsking making his pit stop. So guys are...
That is 9th place pulling into the pits.
Yeah.
But to see Miller landed up with a bit of a problem out in the dark, and let's see what happens to Lamborghini, because he was actually doing well, and something went awry for him. Tank slapper spins it round, catches it,
Same corner,
catches the wall, visiting the marshals, saying how's it to them, thank you for all the hard work, appreciate it, now having to wait.
So if I'm not mistaken, it's... I won't manage to get it going. If I'm not mistaken, only Daniel de Villiers now needs to make his pit stop. The last one to pit, but he only has... Stephen, I'm waiting for the timesheets to have a catch-up here. I wanted to say, I think the last gap I saw was about 18 seconds. Nope, he's in the pits. Ryan Ottens retakes the lead. That's why my timing screens went all haywire.
The moment you thought you had it, Janneman,
I had it all figured out, and then I saw nothing.
That's it. You had it all figured out. Daniel de Villiers losing out to Ryan Ottens. Gideon Rayner trying to close down the gap. Nicholas Manuel has got a problem. Grant Sebastian all right behind him. Grant Sebastian had the light contact with Ronaldo Boersma a little bit earlier. Now going after Nicholas Manuel. Tries to look up on the inside. Decides that he's not close enough to do so. He's going to keep the pressure on. And I mean, if you want to talk about difficult, take a look at this. You're in the spray. You're in the dark. You've got to guess where you're going. And it's not an easy run for any single one of these drivers as they fight their way through. It does look like the guys are trying to keep it all under wraps at the moment. Ronaldo Bursma closing down on them. So while Ryan Ottens is 8.6 seconds ahead of second place, Daniel de Villiers, and Daniel's 20 seconds ahead of Gideon Reyna, Nicholas Manuel, Grant Sebastian, and Ronaldo Bursma are all within a second of one another. And it does look like this is going to be a very challenging race. So Ronaldo Bursma doing everything he can after having such a phenomenal start, now trying to claw his way back through the field. Nicholas Manuel got the biggest smile. I did see a PWSR car, though, go flying off the road. So there was a PWSR Lamborghini that decided to check itself out. And with 50 seconds left, I do think we heard Jim saying our leader is on the final lap. As we keep a close eye on Ronaldo Bursma, Grant Sebastian, Nicholas Manuel. Leader is on the last lap. Jim going and giving us a report. Big thank you to Jim. Gotta love him. He's always so helpful. Ronaldo Bursma going after Grant Sebastian. Grant Sebastian doing everything he can. Nicholas Manuel trying to battle it out at this point. Making that BMW 4 times the size of what it is definitely getting the power of the old M6 at the moment. And just trying to make it the widest car out there on the circuit. Grant Sebastian doing everything he can to try and chase him down with the likes of Ronaldo Bursma right onto his tail. Does look like Grant Sebastian not able to get past it just as yet. Nicholas Manuel really trying to power his way to the line. But it is going to be a monstrous charge. 1 lap for them to go as they keep it all together. It does look like Grant Sebastian losing out to Ronaldo Bursma. But as we go a little bit further forward, there is Ryan Ottens in first place. Andres Serradio has got a drive-through penalty. He's down in 13th. Daniel de Villiers in second place is a little bit far back from Ryan Ottens. Gideon Reyna making his way through, but Nicholas Manuel keeping Grant Sebastian at bay. Ronaldo Bursma still pushing him right to the line. That is 4th, 5th, and 6th, all in a monstrous charge with one another. Janneman, this is going to be a close race for 4th, 5th, and 6th, and all of them looking for some very, very valuable points at this point.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, on the previous lap, Bursma was just not close enough to make a move. But Grant Sebastian, he is trying everything on this last lap. As we see Ryan Ottens around the final corner, he is going to take the checkered flag and take the win. But further down the road, Stephen, the race is not over yet. Second place, Daniel de Villiers. He's making his way. Gideon Reyna, Nicholas Manuel, they still duking it out. Oh, we've got a Ferrari.
That is one of the back markers just bailing
I just
out the
wanted
way.
to say.
I
just saw a red Ferrari and thought...
thought the worst.
I thought the worst.
Tini and Kube going and landing it off. But take a look. Gideon Reyna has a drive-through penalty. Gideon Reyna has a drive-through penalty as he crosses the line. That is 30 seconds. That is 30 seconds, which means Nicholas Manuel at this point will be taking 3rd place away from Gideon Reyna. Ronaldo Bursma will come across the line, hooking it sideways, properly doing it. Here comes Grant Sebastian. Daniel Rowe in 7th place. SES Days in 8th. 9th is Kurt Glaashausen. Conrad Volskink in 10th place. Jan van der Merwe, Daniel Demetro Petro at the moment will be running on 12th. Andre Serradio making his way through in 13th. 14th is Graham Moore, followed by Ramona Yonka, Jason McGregor, Tini Mkube, Darren Miller, William Wentworth, Jean-Ray Bertha, Loic Randable, Hansi Myberg rounding out our field. But where it is all talking is when it crosses the line. Gideon Reyna, right at the last, scores a 30-second penalty, and that would be roughly enough to lose out of position to Nicholas Manuel, and we'll see it in the final results. Has that come to be? I do think, and, well, I do think Nicholas Manuel would be taking that 3rd place away right at the last. There's a confirmation of results. Ryan Ottens, Daniel de Villiers, Nicholas Manuel, Ronaldo Bursma, Grant Sebastian, Daniel Rowe, SESA's Kurt Glaashausen, Gideon Reyna down into 9th position with 30-second penalty. 10th, Conrad Volskink. I'm a bit blown away by that one.
Well, I see the chat is speculating about the weather tomorrow evening. Some say they hope it's going to be dry. Others say, no, it's going to be the same. So I think, we will have to wait and see. I've got my suspicion that this is pretty much the weather that we're going to have tomorrow evening as well. As the chat also mentioned that this is the UK. It's rain, rain, rain. But Stephen, what an awesome race. Full of thrills and spills. I do believe a couple of the guys got caught out by the wet weather conditions. They did not expect it to be wet. Got served a wet race, and Ryan Ottens came out at the end on top, and he coped with the conditions the best.
Well, that's it. And I've got to say the biggest upset was Manuel scoring at P3. Gideon Rayner, if he hasn't got a load cell pedal with a very big spring on the back of it, I mean 400 kilograms, it's about to be abused incredibly hard at that point. Losing our third place, dropping to ninth, I mean, that is a monstrous, monstrous thing. But taking a look back at a little the highlights as we wait for a couple of guys to come and jump into the box with us. Wet race, as you said, completely unexpected for some of the drivers. Guys trying to maneuver their way around. Very, very clean start to the race. No one risking it all too much. But we did start to see the racing start to build up a little bit later on lap 2, lap 3. Darren Miller and Teddy Nkube having a good run. But a couple of guys starting to drop a wheel off on the dirt, causing thrills and spills, like what Teddy Nkube had early on, dropping off to the track and losing out 2 positions in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely brilliant race. We started off in the wet, in daylight. We moved to pitch black darkness. Stephen, this is something these changing conditions. I mean, we had everything in one race except a dry track. So I kind of love it, and the guys really had to work hard keeping the cars on the track. I mean, one corner in particular, was it turn 3, 4, caught out numerous guys. We saw understeer, we saw oversteer there. Couple of guys going off. So I think, they made notes for tomorrow evening, and they'll try and rectify all the mistakes they made tonight so that they are prepared for tomorrow evening.
Oh, that's it. And still waiting to go in here for drivers to come through. I know they're just trying to pull themselves towards themselves after a challenging race here at Oulton Park. And as I said, this track is incredibly difficult at the best of times to keep your rhythm, but adding a bit of wet weather racing does make a bit of a challenge, considering this is the first wet weather racing they've had all season coming into play, and the guys having to really figure it out of what they can do, which, it does change things up a little bit. It does make people wonder what's coming next, because now we've gone into the dark. Now we've gone into the rain. What's next as we head into the rest of the season? Round 5 is done. Well, let's make the track cold. Let's make it absolutely frozen and look like it just had a blistering snowstorm. We'll give our resident UK driver.
I remember a couple of years ago, I started a race. The race start was 5 o'clock in the morning, and it started with a track temperature of 8.
It's absolutely madness. Not what I fully expect, but absolutely amazing racing as we see a couple of the highlights. But I see a couple of drivers going and saying that they've got a little bit too much in terms of the load shedding, so they're getting themselves sorted out. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to, the highlights are going and showing off a bit of a spin for one of the Zoac teams. Let's go and take a look what's coming. Tomorrow, we got the Medal State Grid Championship Round 5 with that massive prize pool of 10,000 Rand. Lots of things been happening during the week, and we can't wait to go and touch on all the different changes throughout the field. Some may surprise you. And with that 10,000 Rand prize pool on the line, we're going to see everyone starting to push themselves a little bit harder to ensure they lock down their position. Still a close championship race for everyone. Looking forward to it. Then we have the welcoming of the RaceFace GT3 Endurance Series 8 Hours of Imola, round number 1, 3rd of June, this Saturday. The Endurance Series returns to RaceFace, and with 8 hours of Imola going to be a proper challenge for a lot of the drivers. Gentlemen, I know you and I, we're a big fan of endurance racing. Good to see it back.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We did a little sprint endurance race this weekend. I think, what was it, 24 hours? It kept us busy for a while. I think, Stephen, I want to say endurance racing is our home for me and you.
That's it. And also, not to go and forget, if you like playing around in the dirt and getting yourself muddy, RaceFace Dirt Championship Round 5 starting also this weekend as we move on to the good old USA. So make sure you get yourselves ready, get that handbrake in position as you're going to be sliding it through around the USA. Make sure you kick up as much freedom mud as possible. Then next week we move on to our RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series as we head to another UK track. We head out to Snetterton. Round number 6, Wednesday 7th of June. Make sure that you tune in for that one. The race can be rather exciting, and based on what we've seen, I can't wait to see what the UK brings. And then we continuing forward, we do have the RaceFace iRacing TCR League, round number 2, heading out to Laguna Seca in USA on the 6th of June. And we're really looking forward to seeing how the TCRs go. A brand new series, round 2 for them. And it is going to be nose to tail racing in some TCR cars as they make their way through the corkscrew. Gentlemen, anything in closing from your side?
Well, absolutely looking forward to tomorrow evening to see what the weather brings. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to change? In the longer format where the guys need to do 2 pit stops, hour and 20 minutes. And Stephen, as you said, we'll delve into it tomorrow evening. A couple of driver moves, driver shake-ups mid-season, but more on that tomorrow evening.
That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the bell notification icon. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and you guys can make it all possible. So share it out with all your friends and family. Show them all the amazing racing here at RaceFace. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow evening for the Middle State Grid Championship. But also make sure to see you here next week. Same time, same place. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification icon. Remember to keep it on the black stuff. And now to go and make sure that I'm nice and dry after this very wet session. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Good night, everyone.